Can your faith withstand combat? I'll broaden that question to combat or trauma or suffering or whatever label we want to put that on. And I don't know that it's helpful to distinguish one from another. But let me just say, let me just focus in on an aspect of that. For the soldier that's going to go into frontline combat, you're in a special forces team, Navy SEAL, your purpose, your airborne infantry, airborne ranger, your purpose is to engage with the enemy, and you know it because that's what all your training is about. Can that person go in prepared? 100%. 100%. In fact, the greatest warriors, I would argue, in history are towards the end of 2 Samuel in the Bible. And it's a list of David's mighty men. There are some feats in there, like killing several hundred people with a spear in a single day. I can't actually imagine how tired my arm would be after just 60 or 70, let alone several hundred. These were not men that were rattled significantly because of turbulence of any kind. These were men that embraced tremendous difficulty. And what is it that allows them or enables them or empowers them to embrace tremendous difficulty and the most intense types of warfare? They have an absolute rock solid understanding of the person of God. In fact, they write about his person. The Psalms, David writes many of them, a fierce warrior. He writes about God's person. In Exodus, we see a statement that Moses records about God's nature, that God is a warrior. So, knowing God's nature, that he is a conqueror, and seeing Christ as a conqueror who will return to vanquish death and sin and those things that stand in opposition to him as king, seeing his person rightly absolutely enables and prepares someone to embrace the most challenging types of warfare. The problem, I would say, with a lot of the teaching that's available for military type people is things like the Combat Trauma Healing Manual are full of psychology, and they're full of statements that want to coddle someone who's hurting, when not all wounds should be kissed. There are wounds that are meant to be helpful. There's pain and there's difficulty with those that embrace combat type scenarios. There's pain and there's difficulty that you embrace because you embrace what it does for you. And if you're in the military unit that is on the cutting edge, you'll understand what I'm saying. The Bible is not a stranger to that. If we read passages like James 1, where it says, embrace trial, see this as a joyful thing. That's not unlike the military's hua or the Navy's hurrah, where they have a grunt for I'm going to run into it because I know that it's good for me mentality. The Bible's actually more at home, correctly understood, in that environment, the warrior hua environment, than it is in the environment we see it taught so common, which is the average American church civilian environment, where people tend to avoid all discomfort at all cost. So it's not that the Bible is absolutely designed by God to equip someone to embrace martyrdom, combat, any difficulty. I think it's rarely taught that way. There are some great teachers that do teach it that way, but I wouldn't say that's the normal. And it took me a while as a soldier to find guys that taught the Bible that way.